guys. Hope you're well. See a couple of you guys are here. I don't know who it is, so that's kind of weird. I haven't received any email questions from anyone. Please email me questions if you're not sure about something, or there was a specific thing you wanted to go over. I have my email open, so if you email me questions, that's kind of what I prefer to go over, is whatever you guys want me to go over. Okay. But first off, I thought I would, if there were no questions, I would just go over kind of the key ideas from the unit. And then, so just kind of one example from each type of topic. So first off, in terms of what you could see on your test on Wednesday, you're going to have to rewrite. Hopefully, I kind of have a wonky system here, so hopefully you can see this all okay. You're going to rewrite in vertex form from standard form. Okay, so that's one thing you're going to have to do. Another thing you're going to have to do is solve by completing the square. And like I said, I'll go over one of each of these examples, although I may go over two, solving by completing the square, because it's different when it's more complicated when there's a number in front of that x squared, right? You're going to have to solve using the quadratic formula. You're going to have to determine the number of roots, or determine the zeros, how many, with the discriminant. And then you have one story problem involving area. Okay, so those are kind of the key ideas for your test on Wednesday. We'll kind of work through an example of one or two of each of those. I want to try to keep it to 25 minutes since that's really all we're supposed to do. So just so you know, but please, again, email me with any questions. I'll be super helpful for me. Okay, so let's start with the first one. Like I said, I kind of have a wonky system here since we're at home. I only have so many supplies and everything. All right, so first, rewrite in vertex form. Okay, so let's say we have the equation y equals x squared plus 10x minus 8. And I want to rewrite that in vertex form. Okay, so if I'm going to rewrite that in vertex form, I'm going to get something that looks like this, right? This is vertex form. So I want to focus on these two terms to start. So I'm going to write this y equals x squared, and keep looking, making sure I'm writing big enough, 10x. Okay, so I need to determine what I need to add in here to complete the square. To do that, I'm going to take this 10 and I'm going to divide it by 2. 10 divided by 2 is 5. We can then square that 5 to get 25. So I'm going to add in 25 here. And then we need to keep this equation balanced. Since I'm putting a 25 on this side of the equal sign, to keep it balanced, I need to do the opposite thing right there, right? So I'm adding 25, but also taking it away. I know that seems like counterintuitive. Why would you add it and then also take it away? It's just so I can rewrite this part in parentheses in a different way, okay? So now x squared plus 10x plus 25 can be written as x plus 5 squared, okay, combine all that, minus 33. So there's my equation. I went from standard form to vertex form. If I wanted to check this, I can always do a check, which is good. I can say, I'm going to multiply this out. So remember, when you square a binomial, you write it out twice, like this, okay? I want to FOIL. So I'm going to get x squared plus 5x plus 5x, and then plus 25 minus 33. Combine like terms where I can. So I have y equals x squared plus 10x minus 8, right? All right, cool. So this is the same as what I started with. So I know I did it correctly, right? Cool, so that's kind of that first bullet point I went over in terms of what you're gonna have to do. You're gonna have to take something from standard form to vertex form, okay? All right, let's do a solving by completing the square. And again, anybody that wants to email me a question, please feel free to do that. That'll definitely be, right, the way for you to get whatever sort of help you feel like you need. All right, so solving by completing the square. Let's say we have 9x squared minus 18x minus 72. Okay? All right, well, to solve this by completing the square, since there's a number in front here, we're paying attention to these two terms to start. I always factor out the a in front of the x squared as my very first step, okay? So I'm going to factor that out. And I have 9x squared minus 2x. Okay, so that's my equation, right? Again, I want to complete the square. I need to figure out what I need to add in here to make this trinomial a perfect square. So I'm going to take that -2 divided by 2. And then I'm going to square this, which gets me 1. Use your calculator. You have the use of a calculator, so be sure to do that as you're working through it to get that +1, okay? Sometimes, I don't know, it seems like people miss this one a lot, so don't be shy to use your calculator to check your work. So now I'm going to add 1 here. And then on the opposite side of this equal sign, so this is what's different from before, I'm going to add 9 times 1. 1 from here, 9 from here, okay? Now, this is different than when I changed from vertex form. When I converted from vertex form, I just, I did it everything on one side of the equal sign. And since I was doing everything on one side of the equal sign, I did opposite operations. When I do things on opposite sides of the equal sign, I do the same thing. So I add 9 times 1 on both sides, okay? Now we can rewrite this as 9x minus 1 squared minus 72 equals, now I'm going to multiply that 9, okay? All right, so now we have the setup. We need to just solve and simplify. So I'm going to add 72. I get 81 equals 9x minus 1 squared, okay? I'll divide by 9. X minus 1 squared equals 9. Now we need to undo this squared. To undo it, we're going to square root both sides. So I get x minus 1 equals, remember we're going to get two things here, both positive and negative 3, because the square root of 9 is 3. I can add 1, and I get x equals 4. Negative 3 plus 1, -2. So those are my two solutions. If I want to check, I can always plug these answers back in here, and I should get 0, right? All right, cool. So that's solving by completing the square. Okay. So like I said, I'm going to try to keep this to 25 minutes. So I'm just going to try to do an example of each. But if you have questions, send them my way. That's preferred. All right, quadratic formula. All right, 3x squared minus 6x equals 23. All right, so with this one, the very first thing I want to do, anytime you use the quadratic formula, you need to get everything on one side of the equal sign. So we're going to bring that 23 over by subtracting 23. So I get 3x squared minus 6x minus 23 equals 0. Okay, I can now identify my A, B, and C. So this is A. This is B, and remember, you pay attention to the sign. This is C. Okay, so we're going to plug it into the quadratic formula. Negative B is always going to be the opposite of B. So negative 6 turns that to positive 6, plus or minus the square root. Be sure to put that negative 6 or whatever B is in parentheses squared, minus 4 times 3 times negative 23. Okay, and that all is going over 2a, 2 times 3. Okay, all right, so then I get 6 plus or minus the square root of 36. That's negative 6 squared. Then 4 times 3 times negative 23, which is plus 276, and that becomes plus 276 because we have a negative here and a negative here, right? All over 6. All right, so I get x equals 6 plus or minus the square root. Can add those two terms together to get 312. Okay, and now this is where I make my two equations and plug these in my calculator. Well, first I'm going to take the square root of 312. So I get x plus or minus, or sorry, not x, 6 plus or minus 17.66 all over 6, right? So I'm going to do 6 plus 17.66 all over 6, and 6 minus 17.66 all over 6. Be sure you do the numerator first, or if you want to plug it in all at once, you're putting parentheses around this whole numerator. Okay, so 6 plus 17.66 divided by, sorry, I should have calculated that before, divided by 6. And I get 3.94. Okay, here I'm going to do the same thing. 6 minus 17.66. And then I'm going to take that answer and divide it by 6. So I get negative 1.94, right? So two solutions there, here and here. And if you're having issues getting these answers, you feel like you're doing all this stuff, but you're getting a wrong answer in your calculator, let me know. That's kind of the common mistake here. A lot of people set this up correctly, It has to do with like calculator input. A lot of people make mistakes there. So let me know. Try to show me your work exactly as you're entering it in your calculator, and I can try to figure out where you're making that mistake. All right. And then discriminants, pretty easy as long as you just remember the formula and what it is. So remember, it's b squared minus 4ac. And if that's greater than 0, we have two solutions. If it's b squared minus 4ac equals 0, one solution. B squared minus 4ac less than 0, 0 solutions, right? Okay, so let's say we have the equation 10x squared plus 10 equals negative 4x, okay? First thing, I want everything on one side, so I'm going to bring that over. 10x squared plus 4x equals, plus 4x plus 10 equals 0, right? So now I'm going to just plug it in to this equation right here, okay? So b squared, that would be 4 squared minus 4ac. So 4 times 10 times 10, right? I get 16 minus 400. If I simplify that, I get negative 384. That obviously, negative 384, is less than 0. So since it's less than 0, we'd have 0 solutions. Awesome. All right, let's talk about that last example, last type of problem. We've kind of gone over one of each type of problems you'll see on your test on Wednesday. And that's a story problem involving area. So let's say we have something like this, okay? And this is x, and this is 2x minus 3, and the area is 100 units squared, okay? And I want to know what x is. So to do that, I know area of a rectangle is length times width. So area equals length times width. So I'm going to plug in what I know. I know the area is 100, so 100 equals 2x minus 3 times x, okay? To solve this, I'm going to multiply, so I get 2x squared minus 3x equals 100, okay? I'm going to subtract 100 from both sides, so I get 0 equals 2x squared minus 3x minus 100. Now, it doesn't tell us what way we have to solve this problem, so I can solve it any way. This doesn't look like the nicest problem for solving by completing the square, so I would solve it with quadratic formula. So since I have limited space on this whiteboard, I'm going to erase this up here. And I'm going to say, rewrite that equation. So 2x squared minus 3x minus 100 equals 0. And I'm going to plug that into the quadratic formula. So x equals negative b, so that would become positive 3 plus or minus the square root of negative 3 in parentheses squared minus 4 times a times c, okay, all over 2a, right? Careful again when simplifying, so you get 3 plus or minus the square root of 9 minus, well, I'm going to multiply all these together, so I get 4 times 2 is 8, 8 times negative 100 is negative 800, but with this negative, this becomes a plus 800 all over 4, okay? Which is, I give myself a little space, 3 plus or minus the square root of 809 all over 4. Okay? Now I'm going to take the square root of 809 and I get x equals 3 plus or minus the, sorry, I took the square root of 809, so 28.44 all over 4. I'm going to write two equations from here. 3 plus 28.44 all over 4. That's one equation. 3 minus 28.44 all over 4. Okay? Here, I'm going to add this together. So I'm going to 3 plus 28.44 and then divide that by 4. So I get x equals 7.86. And then if I do this one, 3 minus 28.44 and divide that by 4. Negative 6.36. Since we were looking for the length and width of a triangle, this answer doesn't make any sense, right? So this is what x is going to be, or not a triangle. That is what x is going to be for that rectangle in this problem. Okay? So just pay attention. I know most of the time you get two solutions and both those would be your solutions, but since we're talking about a rectangle, we're only going to use the positive one. Okay? It doesn't seem like I got any questions regarding anything people want to go over. So like I said, I just picked an example of each from things. Is there any, I'll give you guys a minute. Is there anything you guys have questions on that wasn't addressed here that you kind of wanted to go over? Give you a minute or 30 seconds or something to send an email if you have one. I hope everyone's doing well. I know I'm going a little stir crazy being in lockdown for so long. Yeah, like things to get back to normal. All right, well, I haven't received any questions. Of course, feel free to email me questions at any point, and I'll try my best to answer them. I'm going to have another review session at 4, but if you're planning on just going over these same problems, so definitely don't need to log back in unless you have a specific question and want me to go over it. All right, I hope you guys are well. Yeah, let me know if you have questions. Talk to you later.